Hi, my name is David Blitzer. I teach 8th and 9th grade English at Boston Prep. I'm here to talk to you about the ways in which in my class I incorporate culture of power ideas, how I kind of defend teaching a very Western education to students, and also how I explain to students the high behavioral expectations I set. In terms of the culture of power, I think the two biggest ways this comes up is with vocab and with grammar. With vocab, I'm pushing students to use words that, oftentimes they feel like, what's the need to use these words as opposed to the words I already use? Some of them are synonymous. And what I often explain to students is both that these words give you greater nuance and greater depth with which to speak, but also they help you access things that you wouldn't normally be able to access if you didn't know what these words mean. In particular, I teach Animal Farm, and one of the kind of enduring messages of Animal Farm is that those who are unable to read and those who are unable to understand the words that those in power use are kind of left helpless, vulnerable, and powerless. And I often relate that back to the reading we do in class, right? The vocab we learn, and I kind of make the same point. It's like, hey, there are people out there in this world who want to take advantage of you, who want to trick you. And if you don't understand the vocabulary they're using, you put yourself at a disadvantage. You allow yourself to be taken advantage of and render yourself a more helpless person than you need to be. So learning vocab, and I use this metaphor with kids, learning vocab is like a weapon, right? It's your weapon against those who might try to take advantage of you. I also think about the word nostalgic, right? The word nostalgic shows up on PSATs, SATs. It is a word that shows up in many different aspects of Western culture. And it's important that I teach kids that word disproportionate even maybe to other words. And I think as a planner, how I'm setting them up to be a part of the culture of power, to be able to fluently use the word nostalgic or recognize what other people mean when they use it so they're prepared for its, one could say, outsized importance. On the grammar front, a lot of grammar seems perplexing to kids, especially 8th graders, because they have a grammar, they have a conversational syntax that they use, and so the need to change the way they speak often seems strange to them. And one thing that I really try to emphasize is the distinction between the words they use in class and the words they use outside of school. I teach them the term code switching even, and I emphasize that the conversations that they have outside of class, the way they speak with their friends and at home with their families, is perfectly fine, and that they should feel no need to change that speech when they are outside of school. But I also emphasize that within school there is an expectation of language, and that we at Boston Prep aren't the ones who are making this, right? It is the language of the professional world. That when you're in a job interview, you'll be expected to be able to use these words, right, and show others that you know how to speak, how they want you to speak. And that that is something that we also have to prepare students for, and that you as someone who's going to be in the job market has to prepare yourself for. I also try to really emphasize like the arbitrary nature of grammar, right? Some grammar rules don't have a logical explanation, it's just the way they are. And I try to give students any opportunity I can to reveal that, right? Sometimes grammar makes sense, and when there's a logical reason for it, we go over that. But on the other hand, if there isn't a reason, I'm very explicit with kids, like there is no reason that this is right? It's just the way that people in the professional world talk, and you have to be expected to kind of memorize that. And I think making it seem like grammar is not something that is right or wrong or ethical, but something that just is, I think takes away some of the pressure from it. I also often talk about it, and I kind of stole this from Oren, on the level of the kind of cocktail party scenario, right? I often tell them that, one day you're going to be at a cocktail party with your boss, with people in college, and you're going to want to be able to participate in those conversations and show off what you know. Right? And so a lot of the words, a lot of the books we read are preparing them for those kind of conversations, right? Especially, for instance, when I teach Shakespeare. I remind students that pretty much everyone around the world is reading Shakespeare. And that's both a great opportunity to be part of that larger culture conversation, but not reading Shakespeare also excludes you from that conversation. And then it's important in the professional world to be able to have access and to kind of demonstrate your understanding of Shakespeare to be a part of that conversation. I also do a positive spin on it with my ninth graders, because in ninth grade I teach a very kind of American lit curriculum. And I talk about with works like I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and To Kill a Mockingbird, that these are kind of cultural touchstones for American culture, and that by reading them, they get to join a larger group of individuals, of Americans who've read these books and are able to talk about what it means to be American and what are the great works of American culture. And so I think that should be problematized for kids at a certain point. But I also think there is a positive way in which you can frame how students need to read and need to learn about certain aspects of the Western cultural curriculum. In terms of behavior, the biggest analogy I always come back to is the job interview, right? To remind students, because I think at least for middle schoolers, that's something that you don't need to teach them, right? Maybe sixth graders, but most of them know what professional behavior already looks like. It's just getting them to buy into and believe that they should consistently behave in a professional way. So whenever kids are kind of slouching or talking in a low voice, I always remind them of what that job interview will be like. And I remind them that there are other kids out there who are competing for the same spots that they are. And unfortunately, in the professional world, very superficial measures like how you sit up, right, and how you speak will be used to judge you and whether or not you're fit for a job. And I say to students, that's not always fair, right? That's not fair that such superficial measures should be the way that people judge you for a job. At the same time, it's a reality. And I say this very explicitly to kids, that I don't want you to have your opportunities diminished later in life because someone who doesn't know you and doesn't know the strengths you have, right, judges you very superficially. And so I often frame both conversations around behavior, both as in terms of the job interview, but also in terms of opening up doors and opportunities for kids.